I was honestly expecting them to be worse. Hi everyone and welcome to another video, specifically the last entry to my Diary of a Wimpy Kid retrospective. We made it! We made it! We made it! You can watch the other entries to this series on my channel, or you can also visit the dedicated playlist because we love convenience. There's no excuse for you not to watch the other videos. I'm just saying. Today we're going to talk about the animated Wimpy Kid movies that have been releasing on Disney+. I was low-key dreading watching these movies, which seems a bit mean, but you know, after watching them, I actually don't think they're that bad. Let's get into my thoughts. Part 1, my expectations. This series of movies started releasing around 2021, and as I mentioned in my previous Wimpy Kid videos, around like maybe 2019, 2020, or maybe even earlier than that, I've already grown out of the age group for the franchise, and so as a result, I don't feel as compelled to keep up with it as I keep up with, you know, other fandoms that I am in right now. When I saw they were making animated Wimpy Kid movies, I thought it was a natural progression on where the movie series could go, because with Jeff Kinney being an illustrator himself, keeping things within the medium of like drawing and illustrations, it seems like something that is right up his alley. So when I saw the announcement, I was like, yeah, it seems like a likely thing for the books to be adapted into. However, I also feel a bit fatigued because if you consider the long haul to also be a reboot, that would mean the Wimpy Kid movie series has been rebooted twice within like 10 years, which is kind of a similar case to the Spider-Man movies, only Wimpy Kid doesn't have the same like legacy that Spider-Man has. At least not at the moment. So I was like, I'm probably not going to watch these movies. Maybe if I have some spare time and I really have no idea what I'm going to do, maybe I'll watch it. But I've experienced these stories twice, so I don't feel the urgency to watch them all over again. And honestly, when I said like maybe I'll watch it when I have my spare time, I keep forgetting that they actually made these animated movies because I don't think it's promoted as much as well. So the only reason I ended up watching these movies is because I am doing these retrospective videos. Coming into these movies, my expectations are already pretty low. Again, I've already experienced some of these stories twice, and honestly, like I probably would have been more excited watching the animated movies if they were adapting books that they haven't adapted before. Another reason why my expectations for these movies were so low is because I saw the test footage that they put out initially, and the movie was supposed to look similar to the style of the Peanuts movie, which I thought looked really gorgeous and really charming. So I was a bit disappointed that the end products weren't similar to that test footage. The only thing I was confident about when it comes to these movies is the fact that Jeff Kinney produced and wrote these movies. So at the very least, these movies will be close to his vision as much as possible. And even if I do have problems with the later Wimpy Kid books, I do think out of all the people who understands these characters, it would be him, the creator himself. So are these movies good? Part 2. The reality. These movies were not that bad. The first thing I want to talk about is the animation. From the trailers, I expected the animation to be stiff and bland and bad, but after a while, I kind of got used to the style that these movies have, and I actually thought that some of the characters and environment looked really cute in this form. It does a pretty good job in translating the world that Jeff Kinney has drawn in the books into a bigger scale 3D animated form. I never expected the animation to be as detailed as like Disney or Pixar movies, given that these movies were only Disney+ exclusive, so I bet that the budget isn't as high. I imagine that the budget that they have is probably sort of slightly higher than regular TV special budget, and after a while, the animation does grow on me and it actually looks charming in my opinion. And as more movies are coming out, the animation has gotten better over the years as well. But I also understand if people do not vibe with it because it does feel like it's cheap at times. But the thing is, I grew up watching the Barbie movies and animation in those movies are a bit clunky, but I still enjoyed them. Overall, I know animation takes a lot of money and a lot of time, so I can excuse if the animation is not as expensive or as detailed as other movies that are put out by like Disney or Pixar, and I'm willing to excuse the animation quality as long as the writing is good. In my opinion too, the Wimpy Kid series doesn't really require any like fancy animation. Not that I'm saying that they should cut corners because it's just like a Wimpy Kid story. These stories are generally slice of life, and more than anything, I feel like the jokes and the humor relies more on the wit.
Nothing like that. I just made some student council posters they didn't like.
Huh.
Politics. That's a dirty business.
Even if there are visual gags, I don't think it necessarily needs any complicated or complex animation. I would imagine if these movies were to be released in the cinemas, the budget would be higher, but alas, these movies are just like streaming movies, so obviously the budget won't be as high. And generally, I see where the business side of things come in, because with slice of life kids movies like this, I don't think parents will feel as compelled to bring their kids to the theaters, considering how expensive tickets have gotten and how stressful bringing kids out gets. Also, trying to get them to sit down for a couple of hours to watch a movie can get frustrating too. So I see why parents would much rather have their kids watch movies from disneyplus or netflix or other streaming platforms, because it's just easier for them. Although I wish this wasn't the case, I think going to the cinema is such a lost experience because not a lot of people are doing it anymore. I sort of wish that we would go to the cinema more. But honestly, I wish I could go to the cinema more often too, but the thing is, tickets are expensive. So yeah, that was like a tangent, but again, like I understand why the animation could be off-putting for some people. However, I do think what saves these movies for me is the writing. I'm fine with the first two movies and then The Last Straw. So those movies adapted the first Wimpy Kid book, and then Rodrick Rules, and then The Last Straw. Jeff Kinney did a pretty good job in adapting the books, even incorporating elements from the previous live-action movies as well. And I think these movies still felt fresh and different from these other adaptations or these other forms. But given how Jeff Kinney has done a lot of versions of these stories, like he's done the webcomics, the novels, he might also have input as well on the first 3 live-action movies. He knows these stories like the back of his hand, and it is so clear that he's already so familiar and so comfortable with the story. So he does a great job in streamlining the stories so the movies flow better than the books, if I might say so myself. Something I actually adored about these movies is the fact that Jeff Kinney allowed moments outside of Greg's perspective. So the world felt bigger and richer because you are not just stuck in Greg's head, and you are allowed to follow characters outside of Greg's periphery, even if Greg is not present. So in The Last Straw, there are moments where Frank and Susan have conversations with themselves without Greg present, and I think it gives a lot of insight into the parents when they are not being perceived by Greg. I think this is a clever way to do things as well, because as much as this might sound shallow, the locations and the settings in these movies, like, they're kind of barren, and I don't blame the animators at all, because this might be for budget reasons. Maybe they cannot generate a lot of assets to put in the environment. So strengthening the writing of the characters and giving more time with them, it is a good way to make the world feel more fleshed out to make up for the lack in the visual. This is something that I am also learning in theater as well, because like when you're in theater, you kind of have to suspend your disbelief. So you can completely make a theater show on a barren stage as long as you have good writing to make things still compelling enough for people to watch. So my overall thoughts about these movies is that they're pretty good and the writing is pretty well done. I think there's a lot of thoughts that go into it, which I appreciate, because Jeff Kinney obviously has a lot of care for these stories. And even if the animation can get a bit clunky, I don't have a lot of problem with it as much as the other people. I still think there's a bit of charm in the way that they kind of look. But I do have to say, the 3 movies, they're okay, but Cabin Fever is actually so good. I'm not saying it's this complete masterpiece, but compared to the other Wimpy Kid movies, Cabin Fever has no business being this good. Cabin Fever as a book is already good as it is, and I think Jeff Kinney improved so much as a writer and as a screenwriter over the course of his experience that he's had, that I feel the screenplay for Cabin Fever is just so good. This movie was so heartwarming, yet still funny, and I love what Jeff Kinney did with Greg's character in this one. And this is what I've been trying to say. Like, I know I might sound harsh, especially towards the end of my retrospective about the later books. I keep saying how I don't like those books because they focus more on the comedy rather than Greg as a character. And I'm only hard on those books because I know Jeff Kinney has the capability to balance these two things. He can still do justice to Greg's character while still making funny jokes, and this movie is proof of that.
Please be gentle. I've got delicate wrists.
The Cabin Fever movie pretty much reminded me of the feeling I get when I read the older Wimpy Kid books, where there's a good amount of sarcasm and heartwarming moments and character development on Greg's end. And I hope Jeff Kinney is aware of that, because I don't think that these animated movies are bad as people are making it out to be. I think they're still not as good as the live action movies, but it has the potential to be better than them. If Jeff Kinney continues trying to do his best to focus on the character rather than the comedy comedy or the gags or the jokes, I think he can write good movies like Cabin Fever. And I am looking forward, honestly, to the other animated movies because they're going to adapt books that haven't been adapted before. And I want him to continue maintaining the quality of writing he did in Cabin Fever for these subsequent movies. I think the next book that they are going to adapt is The Getaway, which I'm looking excited about because I'm excited to see these characters in like a new location. But with Jeff Kinney's penchant for travel stories, I hope he doesn't forget, again, that the focus should remain on Greg as a character rather than the spectacle or the jokes. But I do worry a bit, and I hope this worry is unfounded, because when I was watching The Last Straw, there's a lot of like set pieces of like slapstick humor and Greg creating a mess, and there's a lot of things happening, you know. I don't know how to describe it, so I'll just put in like videos of it.
You might have put too much weight on this. Beautiful! Don't give up! So, la 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 la,
But I just hope that the subsequent movies wouldn't focus too much on having those kinds of moments. I still want the movies to have character development moments. As I mentioned before, I think Cabin Fever manages to have both of these things in the movies. So I hope Jeff Kinney keeps up his writing as closely as the formula that he has in Cabin Fever. Part 3. The end? Question mark. Thank you so much for coming with me on this Wimpy Kid retrospective journey, guys. It was fun and nostalgic, and this has been a good reason to like revisit something that I remember fondly from my past. I would say the Wimpy Kid franchise overall is really fun. And I know I can be critical of the book sometimes, but it's because I genuinely adored this franchise. In my first video to this series, I mentioned that Wimpy Kid is the reason I got into reading and writing and analyzing. As a result, this franchise means a lot to me, and that's why I put enough care to think so much about the series and have opinions about it. I'm not doing this because I hate the franchise. If I hate the franchise, I would just like abandon ship. I'm just very glad to have the opportunity to share my love for this series with you all. And who knows, maybe in the future I will talk about the new books or the new animated movies, maybe even the spin-off books. The possibilities are endless. To those people who have been following along with this series, I appreciate you a lot and thank you so much. Anyhow, have you guys watched these Wimpy Kid animated movies? If you have, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And thank you so much for watching this video. If you like it, please consider leaving a like, leaving a comment, even sharing the video. Overall, engage with it, please. Also consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't. Like, I do video essays, vlogs sometimes, and just general videos where I make commentary about stuff. Again, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Have a good day, night, afternoon, evening, dusk, dawn. Or maybe you're watching this at like 3 a.m. in the morning. Thank you. Anyway, bye.